we've got a great guest host today, Equity Group Investments Chairman Sam Zell. We've been talking about a lot of things all morning long, but Sam, at the top of the 7 o'clock hour, for anybody who wasn't awake yet, hadn't tuned in yet, you talked a little bit about how you do corporate enterprise installations, and when you watch those things and you see delays, that signals a recession is coming. What do you see specifically? What
I said was that we have a company that is in the business of creating enterprise, it's providing an enterprise service where they complete a whole package of stuff. And one of the signs that they have of where we are is when they see all these projects start to get delayed. That's usually one of the first signs that we're heading into a recession. In other words, instead of the project was supposed to be done in 3 months, and now somebody at corporate says, well, we'll postpone it for 9 months. And you start seeing that, and we see that in a lot of our companies, not just that one.
Where is it happening? Around the country?
Everywhere. I mean, maybe except Texas. But what we're seeing is that, I'm not as optimistic about consumer spending for the end of the year. I think I think the environment is tough, and the confidence is low. And when you have a tough environment and low confidence, I've been somewhat, I was going to use the word depressed, but I've become somewhat of a pessimist. And anybody who knows Sam, the one thing Sam has always been is the giant optimist. The bottom of every market, Sam is buying stuff. And my problem, and then I had this epiphany, and I said, the problem is, if my assessment of the realities are such, then everything is massively too expensive. In other words, based on the fiscal cliff and all of the headwinds, the stock market should be 9,000, not 14,000. But the stock market is getting buoyed by QE7 or 8, or whatever number it is. And so we're creating artificial numbers that I don't think the underlying will support.
If Barack Obama is reelected, would that put you in a state of you might be depressed a little bit longer, probably, wouldn't you?
Well, I just think it'd be a continuation of how I am today.
What do you think? What do you think right now? Do you think are you pessimistic? Do you think he's going to be reelected at this point?
I'm not a political prognosticator.
So off camera, you wouldn't say yes or no?
Listen. You
don't know.
I don't think Barack Obama has been the best president we've ever had. I frankly think that he's been one of the poorer presidents we've ever had. So therefore, from my perspective, I would be happy if there was a change.
So let's say he gets reelected, and then 4 years from now, can we still, pull back on some of the shift towards an entitlement state that comes for the next 4 years? Do we still have a chance to right the ship 4 years from now?
I think the reelection of President Obama would likely make righting the ship much more difficult.
4 years from now.
4 years from now. We talked about structural in the economy. Well, we're also got to talk about structural within the agencies. 8 years of Lisa Jackson at the EPA is something to be really concerned about. 8 years of this NLRB, we could be, reunionizing the whole country, and somebody would, write a bill that says you can't have right to work.
Let's say you're right, and let's say Romney wins. How quickly, in your estimation, do things turn around? What happens? What is the shift? To the extent that you think Washington can impact any of this?
That's the caveat I was going to give you. But what I would say to you is I think whoever is elected president in a month from now, they will have to do major, major stuff. Obviously, you've got two different ideologies. And I think if Romney were elected, he's going to have to do major stuff, absorb major pain, but hopefully create a base from which the country can grow again. I don't think increasing Medicare is going to increase the growth rate of the country and create more jobs, as an example.
Flip it around. If you take some of those things away, there is an argument to be made, and maybe you don't agree with it, that there's going to be some pain, at least in the short term. What does that do to the economy and your views on where we ultimately go? I
basically think that I think the last 5 years has been all about somebody sticking their finger in the dike. Okay? They didn't solve the problem. They just stuck their finger in the dike, and we know the dike's eventually going to go. And so all I'm saying is that we have to address and solve problems. The last 4 years, we have addressed and solved, in my opinion, very few problems. I think time is up for whoever wins.
Right.
The question is, how will that person react? We saw President Obama lose big time in 2010, and as opposed to Bill Clinton, who moved to the center, he moved further left. How will he respond if he gets reelected? That's a little scary. I mean, and I don't know how much further left he could run.
Was kicking the can down the road the right thing for a while? You say putting your finger in the dike, the hope was that the waters would recede some so that when it did burst, it wouldn't be quite as bad.
You stuck your finger in the dike because you were afraid to do what every scenario requires. You've got to clear the market. If the single-family housing market had been allowed to fail, as you would use your term, we would have a viable, terrific housing market today because it would have cleared. By virtue of not allowing it to clear, we have 4 or 5 million houses in purgatory.
The foreclosures.
All that stuff, because nobody was willing to say, A is A, B is B, face up, next. Let's reclaim now. Let's suffer and go forward. Let's build tomorrow. That's what a policy that doesn't acknowledge reality has never succeeded in the history of the world. And that's really the policy of the last 4 years. It's been stick your finger in the dike, hope for something good to happen.
What role do you think Ben Bernanke has played in all of this?
The idea of all of this massive amounts of liquidity, each time he increases it, the impact is less and less. You would think that maybe it's time to think of it as, another solution, because it ain't working. Okay, I mean, we've had, 3 or 4 QE something or other. And then we bought cars from people at inflated prices. Then we encouraged them to buy houses. We did all of these things and nothing worked. If it was your life or if it was my life, we would have changed things 3 years ago. Right?
Right.
You wouldn't have sat there and said, well, I'll just suffer until, it's like the 2,000-year-old man by Carl Reiner and Mel Brooks. The guy had asked if he ever had an accident. He said, oh, yeah, what happened? He says, I got run over by a chariot. What'd you do? He said, I laid there till I got better. I didn't have insurance. So my point being, that's not a solution, okay? You gotta take action and you gotta face up to reality. That's all. It's not complicated. It takes a lot of courage and it's gonna break a lot of eggs. But don't you think it's time to break some eggs? For everybody?